What's up everyone? My name is Marie, welcome to my channel, and welcome to another speed build. And I guess welcome to another episode of Building Stars Hollow, because I'm back with another Gilmore Girls inspired Stars Hollow build. And you probably already guessed it from the thumbnail and the title of this video, but today we're doing Luke's Diner. And this is a very long video, so I hope you have a snack, maybe, you know, some coffee on hand, which would be very on theme for this build specifically, because we're gonna be here for a while. This took me a hot second to do. So initially I thought that Luke's Diner would not be super difficult to do because the shape of it is pretty straightforward. It's really not that complicated, but I was so incredibly wrong about that. And that's mostly because of size proportions in The Sims and angles in The Sims, and we're kind of limited with those things. And it doesn't really work the way it would in real life, clearly, because it's a video game. So because of those restrictions, or I guess just differences, I was definitely running into some problems very early on already for the facade of the build. And because of that, Luke's Diner, my Sims version of Luke's Diner, definitely ended up being a little bit more spacious than the, I guess, real life version of Luke's. So yeah, I tried my best and I'm actually very happy with how it ended up looking. But it was definitely a struggle. I had to really sit down and just trust the process for this one and just kind of like keep going and keep adding on to it, because I really tried everything in my power to make it look as close to Luke's, like the show version of Luke's, as possible. And you know what? I think I actually did a pretty good job. I am very happy with how this turned out in the end, but it was definitely a process. I was so wrong to think that this was going to be a slightly easier one. I knew from the get-go that it would be a larger build because it's essentially a few lots in one. But yeah, shape-wise, I thought it was going to be simple, but it was not simple. Thankfully though, I really like I said, how it came out, and I'm over the moon about this build. I think it's just so fun. It was a lot of fun to do. It took me a while. I think I built this over the course of 3 streams, 3 to 4 hour streams. So, you know, you do the math. That was definitely a little bit of a sit down to get it all finished, but I'm very happy about this. So basically, if this is your first Gilmore Girls build of mine that you're watching, this has kind of turned into a series. I was going to just build the Gilmore Girls residence, Lorelai's house. If you're familiar with the show, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not familiar with the show at all, you have still probably heard of the title of the show because it's definitely a classic. It's an early zeros, very cozy show about the Gilmore Girls, and they live in a small town called Stars Hollow, and Stars Hollow has all these very iconic locations and builds that I'm kind of trying to now build in The Sims 4 because I personally am obsessed with Gilmore Girls. I've only watched it for the first time last year, but I am positively obsessed with it, and I'm currently on my second watch through. So yeah, I'm watching it now. It's very autumnal thing. A lot of us, or a lot of people that love Gilmore Girls, love to watch it, especially in fall, even though it's kind of like a year-round thing, and a lot of people do watch it like year-round. I feel like a lot of us just really enjoy watching this in autumn because it's just so cozy and just so nostalgic, and it's just really fun. And like I said, it has a lot of classic, iconic builds that I am now trying to build in The Sims 4. I started with Lorelai's and Rory's house, and I was just gonna do that one build because I just really wanted to do it and I thought it was fun. But then it was very successful and I really, really, really enjoyed it, and I figured I wanted to do more builds from Gilmore Girls, or from Stars Hollow, if you will, in The Sims. So that's what we're doing. This is the third one. I have also built Kim's Antiques already. And now this is the third one, and this is essentially 3 lots in one because it's Luke's Diner, but then it also has Luke's apartment on top, of course. And then we also have the soda shop, Taylor's Old-Fashioned Soda Shop, I think is the official title, next door. The soda shop isn't added until a little while later. I want to say it's season 3 or season 4. I'm not exactly sure, but around there somewhere. So basically what happens is Luke obviously owns this diner and he lives in the apartment, which is essentially just a renovated office because it used to be a hardware store. There's a lot of lore to this. This used to be a hardware store owned by Luke's dad, and then Luke's father passed away, and then Luke started his own diner in the same building as the hardware store. So essentially the diner is a diner, but it also kind of still looks like a hardware store on the inside. That's kind of the lore there. And then at some point, Luke actually buys the entire building, and it has this little second store attached to it, which he then also owns. And then he rents that out to Taylor, who starts his old-fashioned soda shop, candy store kind of thing in the lot or in the little building next door. And then what's funny about that is Taylor actually adds in a window on the inside, so you can look from Luke's into the soda shop and the other way around. And Luke clearly hates it because Taylor and Luke, they are not friends, so to speak. So yeah, he hates it, but it's very classic. It's a classic moment in the show as well. So I obviously had to add that in as well. So I did that as well. So yeah, it's 3 lots in one. Like I said, we have the diner, which in Sims terms is functional as a restaurant. I made sure to make it functional and play test it too. So yeah, the diner is actually a functional restaurant. Then we have the apartment on the 2nd floor, which is obviously just functional as a residential. Unfortunately, we can't have combined lot types in The Sims 4, so you can't actually have a functional diner and then also live on the 2nd floor. I know there's mods actually that do allow you to do that, and you can kind of cheat it in The Sims as well by maybe buying the diner, because you can actually own restaurants, so in that way it should be functional. But you can actually buy the restaurant and then just kind of go here and never leave. So you can still kind of use the apartment and pretend that your sim actually lives there, but you also have to still own a residential lot somewhere. So there's definitely ways that you can cheat it and kind of play that way. But it's not an actual functionality that the game offers, unfortunately. But yeah, so we have the diner downstairs, functional restaurant. We have the apartment, functional residential. And then we actually have a boba shop in the Taylor's soda shop area. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with that, and I really was trying to think of ways to make it functional in that area as well. So what I decided to do was turn it into a boba shop, which is a lot type that comes with the Sims High School Years expansion pack. And I thought it was so fitting. It was actually an idea of a friend of mine who was watching the stream as I was building this. She was like, hey, what about the soda shop stuff? And because I was kind of like brainstorming on what to make it, like how to lay out the soda shop and what to do with it essentially. Like, do I turn it into a cafe, or what do I do with it, you know? And she was like, what about the boba stuff? How does that look? So I kind of decided to just try that and place that down and see what it looks like. And it was so perfect. I thought that was so fun. And I know it doesn't really make sense. It's not essentially like the same thing as a soda shop, but we don't have candy stores. And I could have turned it into just a regular retail lot, obviously, but I don't know, I wanted to do something else with it, so I thought the boba shop was actually perfect for that. Unfortunately, the boba shop lot type is only functional if you also turn it into a thrift store. It's kind of like a combined lot type of thing, and you can only have a functional boba store if you also have a thrifty, like a thrift store. So that was actually perfect because I still had the 2nd floor to Taylor's soda shop to figure out what to do with as well. I was gonna just turn that into a simple move-in ready apartment just for like an extra living space. Maybe you wanted to do something with that in your game or something like that. But then it was actually perfect because I could use this 2nd floor to the soda shop for a small, tiny little thrift store, secondhand clothing store type of thing, which I know is not what they have in the show, but still I'm kind of trying to, you know, simify these builds and trying to make it aesthetically pleasing, try to have it look like the show, look like Stars Hollow, but also have it be functional in your game. So I'm kind of continuously trying to find the middle ground between those things. And I thought that the thrifty with the secondhand store upstairs, the thrift store and the boba shop in Taylor Soda Shop was a was a perfect little way to combine those things together. I thought it was actually perfect. So yeah, we have that. You can use this as a functional boba store, long story short, and I'm very excited about it. But in the meantime, you can kind of see the exterior come together. It was definitely a struggle. I definitely had to cut some footage out because it took me forever to figure out what to do. And also later on, that was such a mistake. But later on, when I was basically just kind of finished with the exterior, I decided that I wanted this entire thing on a sidewalk, on a platform, essentially. And that was my mistake because clearly I should have started with that, but I didn't. I decided later that I wanted to do that. And it took me a minute. The game even crashed as I was trying to do that. It really didn't like me messing around with the platforms. Thankfully, I am very paranoid about my game crashing and I save every like 2 seconds or so. So actually that worked out perfectly fine. But yeah, I did crash as I was trying to create that sidewalk. This was a lot. This build was a lot to handle for the game. But it did end up looking really, really cute and I'm just so excited about it. Obviously, the soda shop and the exterior of the soda shop, I couldn't really find a lot of very accurate or like just very helpful inspiration photos of it, unfortunately. So that was definitely something I had to come up with just on my own, kind of make it look good in the game and just kind of take some creative freedom there to just kind of fantasize about how that would look. And I mean, I feel like it's pretty accurate. I know the inside of the boba shop or the soda shop in this instance isn't perfect. It's definitely not all the way accurate from what I've seen in the show, but it's what worked out for me in The Sims. So like I said, I'm always trying to sort of find that middle ground there to have it be accurate, but also have it functional and look cute in The Sims at the same time. So that's what I did. And obviously I set my game to fall. I wanted this to be very autumnal. That's basically what this entire Gilmore Girls Stars Hollow build series is about. I want it to be very autumnal and cozy. So later on, I actually went through and added some pumpkins. I also added some like patchy scarecrows and stuff. I did that off camera, but obviously at the end of the video, I will give you a tour of the place and I'll show you all the things that I did. And I'll show you how it's functional as a restaurant too, because I did this fun thing where I actually dressed up. When you create a restaurant in The Sims, you can actually set the menus yourself and you can pick outfits for the staff working there. So clearly I had to create staff outfits that clearly just like sort of represent Luke. So that's what I tried to do. And I think it's very funny in the game. So I'll have to show you that as well. So yeah, we're starting on the inside of Luke's and you can already tell that it's actually definitely a little bit more spacious than the real life version of the restaurant, but color scheme wise, I feel like it's pretty accurate. I couldn't really get a sense of what type of floor there is in the diner. All I could see in pictures was something gray and probably concrete. So I went for something gray with a little bit of a pattern to it to like add a little bit of texture. That's what I did. And then there's just a lot of classic things in this diner, such as that no phones, no cell phones sign behind the counter. And I actually went on the gallery to search for a custom art piece that I could use that has like that no cell phones allowed sign, and I could find literally one. So I'm not remembering the creator of this art. I'll have to try to remember to show you when we're actually touring the place in the game. I'll have to show you the creator of that little art piece, but you can actually get that off the gallery, and it was perfect. I wonder if it was actually made for a Luke's Diner build, because I feel like it's perfect for that. It looks very similar to the one in the show. So yeah, whoever created that, thank you. That's exactly what I needed for my diner. Also, what's very classic are those little shells with all the coffee cups. Thankfully, we have that coffee cup clutter item from the Everyday Clutter Kit. It only comes in a few color variants, which is a little bit unfortunate because the cups at Luke's are very colorful, like in real life in the show. Unfortunately, we don't have very colorful, bright colored cups in The Sims. So, you know, that could be a little better, but I was trying to work with what I have and I still think it looks very cute. And also, like I said, I was trying to make this a functional restaurant, so I had to use all the items, the mandatory items, to be able to turn it into a restaurant. So we have this host station that I kind of merged with the counters. as you can see. And the way I did that is I placed the host station and then I placed the counter that I merged it with. I placed that in a basement and then I raised it up. So that way the host station, if you're wondering about that, is actually still functional because the counter technically isn't there because it's just raised up from the basement level. So that's a little sneaky little trick to make stuff like that functional, and I did that. Unfortunately, the color or like the lighting isn't perfect, so there's definitely a little bit of a glitch happening there, but I tried to cover that up with clutter, and I think it ended up looking just fine. It's not perfect, but it works out, and this way it's actually still a functional host station too, so that was perfect. And then here, these counters, I was really trying to clutter it up with all the items that I thought would be good for Luke's. Essentially, that's what this speed build is. This speed build is me cluttering up the space with little items that I thought were perfect, and that was just so fun for me to do. That's just so fun in general for me to do with these builds, is just scrolling through the catalog, and then I'll randomly come like across items and I'm like, oh, this is perfect for this build. I have to use this in here. Like, for example, these takeout bags or little lunch bags or all those little coffee cups or the little condiment baskets, you know, that kind of stuff. It was just so perfect. And it was such a joy whenever I found an item that was good to use in here. And actually, one of the things, I'm not there yet, it'll be a while before we get to actually decorating Taylor's soda shop, but one of the things that I found, or that actually someone suggested, was the candy, the Halloween candy from the Halloween stuff pack. I think it's called the Spooky Stuff Pack. Yeah, Spooky Stuff. It comes with a basket of candy. And you know how Taylor in his soda shop, if you're familiar with the show, he has those barrels filled with candy. And I was trying to find a way to recreate that in the game because we do have barrels in the game these days. So I felt like I had to use those and somehow turn them into those candy filled barrels. And a friend of mine, again in chat, as I was building this live on Twitch, suggested I try to somehow merge those candy baskets or candy little bowls of candy with the barrels somehow using tool mod or any way, shape, or form I could potentially make it work. And that was so smart because I wouldn't for the life of me have remembered those. I don't think I've ever used barely anything from the Spooky Days stuff pack. So that was such an amazing suggestion. And it's so fun because these builds are such like a joint effort, you know what I mean? Like, especially since I'm building them live on stream, it's so fun to create these things with my friends in the chat because they have so many cool suggestions and they know the show basically a lot better than I do. Everyone remembers these like different little details and everyone remembers different little items from the game to kind of bring stuff, you know, make stuff come to life. And, you know, I was just so happy. People that were in the chat can confirm that I was insanely excited about that suggestion of the candy bowl and merging it with the barrels. It was definitely a hassle to make it work, but I actually ended up making it work even in a way where it still translates through the gallery. So if you now download, I had some issues with this as I was doing that, but I figured it out on my own. So if you now download this Luke's Diner off the gallery, you'll have the candy-filled barrels. I mean, fingers crossed because it's still the gallery and it's still The Sims 4, but it should be fine, even though I placed them with tool mod and stuff. So yeah, I was very excited about that little thing, but we're definitely not there yet. I will, however, point it out once we get there clearly. But yeah, here in the diner, you can see that I was trying to really resemble Luke's diner here by placing all those random little knickknacks everywhere that represent the old hardware store. Basically, in the show, the diner just has a lot of shelving units and cabinets and hardware type things just kind of scattered all throughout. And we thankfully have some items now that definitely represent that. One of the kits that came in handy was actually the new artist studio kit that came out, was it last week or the week before? I think it was maybe last week. Time goes so fast, I don't even know what's happening anymore. But it's one of the newest kits, or actually, yeah, one of two of the newest kits. And that really came in handy because it has a lot of those like storage units and things with paint splatters on it that just really look like you could put it in a garage and it would belong there, you know? So that was actually perfect. I could use those kinds of things in here, and I was just basically just scrolling through the catalog trying to see whatever I could use to make it look like a hardware store type thing turned into a diner. And yeah, I think it turned out really well. Here, as you can see, I was messing with some curtains by the entrance. I got rid of some curtains later on. I don't know, it just didn't really look good. The front door was also slightly bothering me, so I swapped it out for another one. I think one from University. Yeah, from University, and that looks a lot better. One thing Luke does not have in his diner is plants, I don't think. I've looked at a lot of screenshots and I don't really see any plants anywhere. I don't think Luke is really a plant guy. It's too much work. You know, he doesn't really want to be bothered. So I don't think he has a lot of plants, but I'm still me and I love using plants in the game in my builds. So I clearly had to go through and add at least one plant. So I think there's one plant here. And then here we also have Lorelai's and Rory's table where they usually sit. So I try to make it look like they were here, you know, by placing a lot of coffee cups, and Lorelai always demands Luke leaves the actual coffee pot on their table so that, you know, for all the refills that she wants clearly. So that's what I did. There's some coffee cups, there's the coffee pot. I also placed a backpack. I thought maybe that was Rory's. She was just here doing her homework or whatever, or she was here before school, that type of thing, which is always something about this show, by the way, very random, but it's something about this show that always like blows my mind. How early do these people get up in the morning? Because they have so much time before Rory goes to school, usually, at least in the seasons where she's still in high school. When she is in college, she lives in the dorms clearly, but when she's still in high school, when she is at Chilton, they're always at Luke's in the morning. They're always just like having breakfast at Luke's, drinking coffee. Sometimes she's like still doing homework or reading a book. How early do these people get up? I truly don't understand. They have so much time before they have to do anything in the morning. And I think her bus goes at 7:45 or something. I think she mentions that at some point to Jess. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, it's so crazy to me. I know it's just a show kind of thing, like it doesn't make sense, but it's just, you notice those little things, you know, and it's just so funny. Also, speaking of Jess, I was definitely imagining that this is the version of the apartment where Jess also lives there. You know, at some point, Luke takes in his nephew, Jess, a 17-year-old boy, who just is, you know, this teenage boy who is very moody and hates everything, essentially. That's Jess for you. So I clearly had to do like the renovated version of Luke's apartment where there's a little bit more space and there's an area for Jess to sleep there as well. So that's what I ended up doing. We're not there yet, but that's what will happen. And then here we have this little area that in Luke's, there's also like in the show, there's also this weird little area back here. For my version of Luke's, it's clearly a little bit bigger because this whole build is just, you know, it's just bigger in my version, for my version of Luke's. That's just size proportions for you, unfortunately, in The Sims 4. So yeah, this area back here is a little bit bigger, and I just, you know, filled it up with some stuff that I thought would look good, like hardware type stuff. We have some shelving units and some other little knickknacks. I think at some point, Luke's brother-in-law builds him a shelf back here or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not really remembering that, but there's something like that that happens at some point, I think. But yeah, I just placed some shelves from Laundry Day. I thought those worked out really nicely, and we have a lot of pipes here on the wall. I'm basically just going through and placing all these random knickknacks that I found as I was scrolling. So that's why the speed builds for these builds are kind of all over the place, because I keep finding random things and wanting to add them in later. So that's basically what keeps happening here. And then we have the kitchen back here as well. The kitchen's a little spacious too. I really like the checkered tiles, by the way. It's definitely giving me a little bit of a headache, but I don't know, for some reason I thought it was a fitting little pattern thing to use in this specific build. For the bathrooms, I used the blue version. I don't know, I just thought it was fitting, and to make it cohesive, I just used the same tile, just in different colors for the kitchen and then the bathrooms as well. And then here we have the kitchen, and I placed 2 chef stations, which are actually functional chef stations for the restaurant lot type, clearly. So that's what I did, and I also cluttered up these island cabinets or island counters that I placed in the middle. Unfortunately, when I was playtesting the restaurant functionality, Sims or the cooks actually started cleaning that stuff up, which makes sense because I'm placing all these like debug clutter items, pots and pans and whatnot, and it makes no sense, but clearly those are functional items, so your Sims will start to, you know, clean those up over time, but that's okay. It was fun to still like place it and have it shown in the speed build, I guess. And then here we have that archway with a curtain, which is definitely shown a lot. That's where I think there's some storage and then also a staircase going up to the second floor where we have the apartment. Again, I'm not exactly sure. This area back here is probably not very accurate to the show, but then again, I wanted it to make sense for my build, and I also wanted it to be a functional restaurant. So back here, I placed a small bathroom for the guests to use, which is actually pretty spacious, but you know, it's a nice bathroom that the guests at the diner can actually use. And then we're moving on to the second floor where we have Luke's apartment. So the way I laid it out essentially is we just have a small landing upstairs, like a small hallway with a couple of closets. Actually, one closet off of the hallway and then one closet, weirdly enough, off of the bathroom. I thought that was such a weird thing that would kind of make sense in Luke's apartment because stuff is just a little odd for his apartment. It is not supposed to be an apartment. It is supposed to be the office to the hardware store that Luke just kind of turned into an apartment. So the layout for it is a little weird. It's an entirely open floor plan. There are no designated bedrooms. There's just little designated areas for stuff, basically. So it's kind of like a studio apartment, but then really, really big. So yeah, here we have the entrance. I feel like the kitchen is shown a lot in the apartment or in the show. Luke's apartment was definitely a little bit more difficult because there's definitely scenes and like screenshots of scenes that take place in Luke's apartment, but it's not always it's not always the same. It sort of sometimes looks different. And then of course he also does the renovation at some point. The only thing that's always very much the same and very continuous throughout the show is the kitchen. So I could get a pretty good idea of what the kitchen looked like, and he has this round dining table, which is another thing, by the way. Now that I'm paying so much attention to all these different houses and builds in Stars Hollow, literally everyone has a round dining table. Except for Emily and Richard, they have this very big, long, rectangular dining table. But everyone else, I was just watching an episode where Suki's kitchen is shown, and Suki has a round dining table, Lorelai has a round dining table, Kim's Antiques has a round dining table. Literally everyone has a round dining table. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is with that. But maybe it's just something that looks aesthetic on set. I'm not exactly sure, but it's something that really is sticking out to me at this point because I'm paying way too much attention to all these specific or different builds, I guess. But yeah, here you can see Luke's living room. I know it's not actually in this area, but I just had a lot of space left over here. So I thought it would make sense to create a dining or a living room space here for Luke's apartment. I don't think Luke watches a lot of TV. He's definitely he's against cell phones. He has the no cell phones rule in his diner, clearly. And I just think in general, he is not that much of a cell phone, TV, computer guy. However, I did give him a really small little old TV here that he basically probably just never uses except to maybe watch the news from time to time, and that's really it. And then I just gave him a lot of like bigger built-in bookshelves. I thought that would make sense for this apartment. There's a lot of dark brown wood tones going on and just mismatched furniture everywhere. That's really the vibe of this place, in my opinion, or my experience. And behind the living room here, which I do think is accurate, is where I created Jess's bedroom space. Again, it's just bigger in my version of the apartment. But yeah, I feel like Jess's space is here, like around this little corner behind the kitchen, essentially. So that's what I ended up doing. I tried to kind of represent Jess here by placing some posters. I don't think he's necessarily very much into sports, but I still thought those posters were kind of fitting for his like style. He is into reading and he is also into music. So clearly I had to place some books next to his bed and a stereo, some headphones, stuff like that. And then I also gave him a desk. I don't think he necessarily has that in the show, but I thought it was nice. I feel like Luke would definitely be the kind of person that would give Jess a desk so that he at least has a designated spot to sit down and do homework. even though he doesn't do homework, he also drops out, or he doesn't drop out, but he doesn't graduate from high school. And he is just like, he doesn't do anything that's related to school. At some point, I think he lies to Luke as well, where he says he goes to school, but actually he works at Target full time. So there's that whole thing. But Luke definitely tries, you know, he really, really tries. It's tough love, but he definitely tries to take care of Jess and make him go to school. And he really wants the best for his nephew. So I feel like it would be a Luke thing to do to give Jess a desk to sit down and, you know, study, even though it doesn't work out that way. And then I do think that the entrance is also pretty accurate. Whenever I see a show or like an episode where Luke's apartment is shown, you'll always see that entrance where there's just a lot of shelving and a lot of cabinets in general, kind of next to each other, kind of together. I'm not exactly sure, but that's kind of what I try to represent. And then here I cluttered up the kitchen a little bit. I actually added in some fruit. I really wanted to add in the fruit because I think that Luke actually eats very healthy, and he always tries to make Lorelai and Rory eat fruit and vegetables as well. It doesn't really work out that way. They never listen, but it's not for his lack of trying. So I thought it would be funny to have at least some fruit in his kitchen here. So that's what I did. And then here on the other side of the apartment, basically on the other side of the kitchen, is where we have Luke's bedroom space. I think in his very first version of the apartment before the renovation, before he knocks down a wall and makes it bigger, essentially, he has a single bed. And I'm not sure if that changes throughout the show, but because I had so much space, I decided to just give him a double bed here that's still like up against the wall. I thought that was a nice middle ground between a single bed and a double bed that's, you know, fully functional. I thought it'd be nice to have a slightly bigger bed, but against the wall. So only one sim can sleep in it. Even though scooting works these days, so you can actually have two sims sleep in the bed. So it's actually still functional. And then here I decided to give Luke a little office space. Even though he's not much of a computer guy, maybe I feel like he would have a computer for business stuff, even though he doesn't really want one. He probably has one because he needs it, you know, so I just kind of gave him that very old looking desk with a nice computer on it. And then for the rest, there's just a lot of little paintings everywhere, some artwork, some random boxes of things. I don't think Luke is necessarily a very messy guy, but also there is still a lot of clutter in his apartment in general, and there's like just random boxes and things. So he's pretty neat. I feel like he's a pretty organized person, but it doesn't really show in the way he decorates his apartment, or maybe it's more of like the lack of decorations in his apartment. I don't know. At the same time, I feel like the sets on Gilmore Girls are so incredibly aesthetically pleasing. The people that decorated or created those sets are so incredibly skilled. Like, the sets for the show are just, they're 10 out of 10. They're so amazing. They're so cluttered and so detailed, and just, I think that's partially, or for the most part, what makes it fun to build this stuff in The Sims, because there's just so much to see, and every single little screenshot of the show for like specific or different buildings, it's just, everything looks so pretty and scenic, and just, it just definitely tells a story. And I don't know, I mean, that's what it's supposed to do, but I feel like they really are very successful at that. And that's why these builds are so fun to kind of recreate in The Sims, I think, in my opinion at least. Here, by the way, is the bathroom. I think that floor plan wise, that's actually pretty accurate. I think the bathroom is back there by Luke's bedroom space. It's probably not, that's not probably what it looks like, but you know, that's what it ended up looking for. Again, my version of Luke's. And then after Luke's apartment, we're moving on to the boba shop, and this is, I definitely had to cut out a little bit of footage because it took me a hot second to try to come up with what I wanted to do with this. It was a lot of trial and error, but immediately I knew that the bistro stuff, the stuff from the bistro kit, would come in handy for this style-wise. I felt like that was really nice. So I used those windows, I used the bar back, like the shelves. And then for candy, we don't actually have a lot of candy looking clutter, or like candy in general in The Sims, aside from this tiny little candy jar that came with the paranormal stuff pack. I think it's an item, a reward item that you get when you, I don't know, defeat a ghost or whatever. I'm not exactly sure. I think at some point you earn the reward of like candy. And so it's a paranormal debug item that really came in handy. I don't know how many, I should count them for the fun of it, but I used so many of those candy jars. Thankfully, they come in a few different colors, so that was very helpful. Imagine if I had only one color, I still would have used just as many, but you know, it would have been a little bit more sad. So thankfully we have some different color variants for this. And then later on, you'll see that I actually decided to use the boba bar thingy to actually use this as a functional boba store. And thankfully it merged not perfectly, but almost perfectly with the counters that I was using. So I could just keep those. And I just love it so much. It looks so much better because I think at the soda shop, you can also buy ice cream, you can buy treats, you can buy all sorts of things, not just candy. So the boba bar looked so much better because there's just a lot more going on. Obviously there's like the boba tea machine bubble stuff kind of thing, but it just looks like maybe potentially like an ice cream maker, or you know, maybe actual boba is sold at the soda shop. I don't know, it just looked so much better, and it definitely added some more texture to the build, and just like there was actually something going on, you know, so that was really nice. And then what I do know for a fact is that within the soda shop there is also some tables and chairs around the place. I'm not at all familiar with the concept of a soda shop. I feel like maybe it's a very American thing. I could be wrong here, but I am not familiar at all with the concept of a soda store or a soda shop. Is it essentially just a candy store? I mean, you can also buy ice cream and stuff there, but when I think of soda, I think of drinks, you know, fizzy drinks, sodas. But is that not what they mean by it? I'm not exactly sure. If someone wants to teach me, please educate me, because I am not familiar at all with this concept. But at the moment, you can actually see that I was playing around with those barrels. Those are the barrels from Horse Ranch, and I merged the candy baskets, or, you know, little candy bowls from the Spooky Stuff pack with the barrels. I had to cut out a lot of footage of me messing around with that, because the annoying thing was whenever I changed out like a wall or a wallpaper or whatever, the candy would disappear from the barrels. And that had something to do with the fact that it actually snaps to the barrels. Like there is a slot on top of the barrel, and that was problematic. So I actually had to make it so that the bowls of candy didn't snap to the actual barrel, and then I had to manually place the barrel back over the candy. It was a whole thing, but it worked out in the end, so I'm really happy about that. So if you now download this lot from the gallery, the candy should be there. So I can't promise anything, but it should be there. I hope it is, because that's literally the highlight of this build for me personally, is the candy barrels. I know it's ridiculous, but I was just so happy about it. And then here, as you can see, we have the second floor to the boba shop. You could still very easily, I feel like, turn this into a small apartment. But I decided to turn it into a thrift store, a secondhand clothing store, because I want this boba shop to be functional. And I think it's actually a very cute Stars Hollow thing to have. I feel like they would definitely have a secondhand store. I do not know which townie from Stars Hollow would run this. Let me know if you have any ideas. Which one of the townies, which one of the, I guess, side characters, which sounds very mean, but I can't really think of a better term right now, would run this secondhand clothing store? Maybe Babette? Would this be a Babette thing to do? I feel like maybe Miss Patty, or, I mean, she's busy with her dance studio, so maybe not, but maybe Kirk? Would Kirk run a secondhand clothing store? I'm not sure. If you can think of a townie, a Stars Hollow townie, that would run this secondhand clothing store, let me know, because I feel like that would be really sweet. It would suck, though, to kind of share a building with Taylor, because Taylor is just... He's funny, but he's a little bit obnoxious, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that would not be great. He's very bossy. But still, I don't know. Again, let me know which townie would run the secondhand clothing store. I'm very curious to see. You probably have a lot better of an idea about this than I do. I also added in some changing rooms here, clearly, because you probably want to try some stuff on. There's some art here, but for the rest, that's essentially it for Luke's Diner. So let's jump into the game and I'll show you the build in real time. So here we have Luke's Diner in the game. It's set as a restaurant right now. I have my playtester Sim actually visiting the diner at the moment. And as you can see, I placed some pumpkins around. I made it extra autumnal because they actually do have that in Stars Hollow. Around fall time, you'll see all these like hay bales and pumpkins around and the scarecrows and stuff. And I just feel like it looks very, very, very cute. Over here is the entrance into Taylor's Soda Shop. I placed some little tables outside as well and just some pumpkin decorations. And then over here, of course, is the entrance into the diner. And also a little detail that I added from the show is this traffic light. I know it's not in its proper place. It's supposed to be, I think, like around here somewhere, but it's this whole thing in the show where Stars Hollow's one and only traffic light gets placed right in front of the diner, and Luke absolutely hates it, and it's just really funny. So I had to do a little traffic light. In the back here, I just have like some dumpsters and stuff. There's not a whole lot going on here because the back of this lot is never shown in the series either. So I just did a little back door into the kitchen here and just a little dumpster. But then let's go inside. So here we have the diner. As you can see, the staff is dressed up as Luke. Unfortunately, we don't have backwards baseball caps in the game. And I was like, it's gotta be a backwards baseball cap or none at all. So they're not wearing any caps. And as you can see, the host station is also actually functional. So that's great. But yeah, here you can get a little bit of an overview of the diner. So we just have the classic bar here with all the treats and the goodies, the coffee machines back here, the coffee mugs on the wall. And then there's some extra, I think in the show there's more of those coffee mugs here, but I felt like I really should add in these little shelves. I just thought that was very perfect. And then we just have a lot of tables and chairs, some mismatched chairs. Clearly we gotta have that. This is Lorelai's and Rory's table. I also actually manually placed some plates here, but those got deleted, unfortunately. I'm not sure what happened, but no plates on the table anymore. And then back here, just all these hardware store type of decorations. Of course, the famous window into the soda shop is right here as well. In the back here, there is a small kitchen. There's still some clutter here. This stuff might actually go stinky. I'm not exactly sure, but it looks kind of fun just sitting there. And then over here is a hallway slash little storage area slash laundry space. I thought laundry machines would make sense for this build, so that's what I did. The waiter stations are down here as well. I forgot to place those initially, but I added them later. And then here we have the bathroom for the guests to use. And then going upstairs, this is where we have a small landing. This piece of trim on the inside of the hallway, I literally tried everything to get rid of it and nothing worked. So yeah, there's just a piece of trim there. It's okay. We're just gonna pretend that she does not exist. And then over here we have Luke's and Jess's apartment. I feel like the kitchen is pretty accurate. I really like how it ended up looking anyway. I just think it's very cozy. All the brown tones are just so nice. In the show, I think his oven is over here, but that looked so bad because of the window placement and I could not bear it, so I decided to place it here instead. Around this corner here is Jess's area. I just made this very messy. I placed some posters that I thought were fitting for his personality. Clutter on the floor, a lot of books here, music, and a small desk. And then over here is the living room space, which is not accurate to the actual Luke's apartment, but it looked good in my version. The entryway here with just a bunch of random storage. And then around the corner here is Luke's bed. I thought these fishing pictures were really nice for Luke's personality. He loves to go fishing, so I thought that was nice. And then clearly I had to place all these baseball caps because he wears them literally every single day. And then Luke also gets a small office space. Over here is the bathroom. The bathroom's actually very spacious. Randomly, I really like how this bathroom came out. We just have a sink here by the window, a shower tub combo, and then in the bathroom, we have a walk-in storage closet. I felt like that was just a nice little weird thing for Luke's apartment. And then going next door into the soda shop, I'm so happy about how this came out because going into this, I did not know what to do with Taylor's soda shop whatsoever. I had no clue. And now looking at it, it brings me a lot of joy, especially my candy barrels. So yeah, that just makes me really happy. We have the boba stuff here. You can hire a vendor, or if you turn it into a boba store in your game, then you'll have a vendor here. There's all this candy around, and I just feel like it turned out really fun. These rugs were so fun. The pastel pop cookie shaped rugs or treat shaped rugs were just absolutely perfect for this. And the bistro kit was great. So yeah, I don't know. The soda shop was so much more fun than I thought it would be. And then upstairs here, we have the secondhand clothing store that I really just put in because I wanted the lot type to be functional, but I still feel like it also turned out pretty cute. So we basically just have lots of clothing racks for you to browse through. We have some decorations. I put some jewelry here. That's probably for sale. Back here we have some changing rooms, of course. And then through this archway here is where we have some more clothes and also the counter. I really wanted this to look like a very old apartment turned into a clothing store type thing. And I think that worked out really nicely. There's also a bathroom here, which is a nice bathroom to use if you're using the boba shop. So there's always a bathroom upstairs. And then there's also this third story that I just didn't use. I debated turning this into another apartment, but I decided against it. I really wanted to focus on Luke's and the boba shop, and I wasn't really sure what to do with this weird space up here, so I decided to just leave it empty. You could always delete the storage back here and use this area for a second staircase, and then you can make this functional if you wanted to, so there is some room for renovations and live above Luke's with your sim. It's definitely something you could do. But that is basically going to do it for this build. So Luke's diner and apartment is up on the gallery for you to download. It's very expensive. It comes in at just under 221,000 simoleons, and it's also very much not pack restricted, but I feel like it's okay because I just really need to use anything and everything I can to make it look accurate to the show, you know what I mean? And I built it on a 40 by 30 in the world of Brindleton Bay on the lot where you'll usually have the dog park. So if you want to place it in your game, then that's where it goes. And then I still wanted to show you this no cell phone sign that I used, which is this one. I found it by using the hashtag no phone sign on the gallery. And this is actually by the creator VelRocks123. So if you wanted to use it, if you wanted to build your own Luke's, you'll know where to find this now. But that's actually going to do it for today's video. So I really hope that you enjoyed this one. You can obviously go ahead and download this build off the gallery like I just showed you. My username on the gallery is Simmary Sims. You can follow me on Instagram and on TikTok if you'd like. My username on there is Simmary Sims as well. If you're not subscribed to my channel already, feel free to do so. And if you'd like to get notified of every single time I upload a video, just click that little bell icon and you should be fine. I also live stream over on Twitch a few times a week, so if you're interested in that, go ahead and give me a follow over on twitch.tv/Simmary Sims. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!